without you, I'm just about to lose my mind.
Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to join me on an exploration of what makes the Elm City tick. Arthur Edwards, Doreen Abubakar, Kim Harris, and Kevin McCarthy make New Haven tick. They're some of the now dozens of neighborhood activists who are bringing New Haven together starting this summer in a campaign called One City. The first time in generations that neighborhoods throughout the city are uniting with local leadership in each neighborhood to work together to start out giving us stuff to do with our families, 60 straight days, 60 events in each neighborhood, and then building a whole organization, neighbors working together. And toward that end, Kim Harris, who is from Newhallville and is the Newhallville management team co-chair, has sparked this whole thing, got everyone together in this. And she's provided this vision, and she's been bringing folks on every week here on Dateline New Haven, which is so much fun, where what we do is that we first check in on what they're doing in their neighborhoods. And then we pull back, and Kim updates us with what's happening with the citywide One City effort. So let's say good morning to Arthur Edwards from Newhallville Safe Neighborhoods Initiative, otherwise known as the Burn Grant. Hello, Mr. Edwards.
Hello.
We have Kevin McCarthy, who actually is a retired career state legislative researcher aide. And you'll want to pull your mic to you, Kevin. And Kevin volunteers in great New Haven organizations from IRIS to you name it. And he also volunteers at the New Haven Independent every week, keeps our calendar in good shape. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
It's fun to see you in a different office of our suite. And Kim Harris, always great to have you on, the One City love machine.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for having us.
So as I said, we're going to start out just talking about stuff you guys are doing in the neighborhoods and then bring it back into One City. So Arthur Edwards, you are a lifer. You are part of the family royalty of Newhallville.
Yes, I am.
Your mother, Elfrida Edwards, has been a big force in the neighborhood, including as an alder, among other roles, for decades. She's now retired from that role, but still busy. You grew up in a Newhallville household. Your sister, Kim, is the new alder. Before that, has always been a union organizer. And Arthur, you, what's your story?
Well, Newhallville resident, as you said. Family always been in Newhallville working, of course, to make things better. Fortunately, we learned a lot from my mother, Elfrida Edwards.
Tell me one moment you'll never forget at the kitchen table or the dining room table growing up. Because I remember walking into that dining room and seeing you when you were little. Tell me one moment you'll never forget.
I remember a lot of times a lot of important people coming to our residents come in, and we're looking at them like, okay, who are they? My mother stayed involved in different activities going on throughout the city. But one thing I always remember about her is, of course, the fussing. She's very determined to make a difference. And,
right, she's always blunt.
Very
and
blunt.
she's not easily swayed by people saying we do good things. She wants to see the results. Was she the same way with her kids?
Yes, she was. She was very blunt. She tried to keep us involved in activities.
And she succeeded.
And she was also, you're going to go out there and pass out flyers and things. We're looking at her like, oh, not again. But
did you work on campaigns at 10 years old?
You are a little older than that. I worked on several campaigns as well as my siblings. So it was good, great experience.
One thing I learned before we went on the air today, Arthur Edwards, is that when you were a little kid, you went to the Ivy Street School, which is at 660 Winchester, which I learned, because I used to be very confused, is actually called the Ivory Street School in local parlance. And it's no longer a school. It hasn't been for a long time. It was originally going to be made into apartments. That never happened, but it became a pretty important transitional shelter facility run by Christian Community Action. Successful place, getting families back on their feet, not living in shelters, but getting social services help. And you're back there. You went there in school, and now you've moved in with the organization that you're in charge of now, which got federal money to try to make Newhallville a safer place, not just by putting cops on the street, although you work with the cops, but try to find long-term ways to build community and make it safer. Is that a fair way to talk about what your organization is?
Definitely, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We want the community to actually redefine what community policing is and continue to change and be out. Think about ways that we can have an impact as residents, as opposed to just putting that burden on the police department.
So Newhallville Safe Neighborhoods it was the Byrne grant, BYRNE, was the name of a federal grant that gave these kind of, I think it was Justice Department, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
To help neighborhoods get stronger. What did we get, $1 million a few years ago?
Yes, $1 million.
And how many years is that supposed to last?
We have another year, so we had actually 2 years of implementation. Of course, we went through several years of planning, but we're into the implementation phase.
So you have only 1 more year left on your job?
Basically.
And then Newhallville's safe, we move on to other things.
Newhallville will continue to move on.
And actually, crime isn't that high in Newhallville, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. You're working on people are doing a great job again of keeping people active, coming out, voicing their concerns, and being a part of the solution. So, crime is down, but we also want to keep the presence of residents involved. We want to continue to increase that in order to sustain any gains.
So, Art, I remember the debates at first when that money came in. Before you got your job, as usual, New Haven people fought over how to spend money. And one school thought we really need that into overtime for cops. We had, summer overtime patrols, more cops on the street. The alder, Delphine Clyburn, said we really need to do stuff like cutting the trees back over street lights because otherwise these streets are so dark it becomes easier to commit crimes. We got to fix sidewalks so people don't fall and trip, and we just want people out on the street by making our neighborhoods infrastructure.
Exactly.
Getting more TLC. And other people said we need whoever is going to have the job that Arthur eventually got to organize people who aren't doing stuff in the neighborhood or doing some stuff in the neighborhood to do more in the neighborhood, but not just have it be an imitation of the management team. So how did that play out, Arthur? What did you actually do?
Well, coming in, of course, those debates raged for a little while. But fortunately, talking with the alders, 3 alders at that time, Alfreda Edwards, Alder Clyburn, and Brenda, they were great in really smoothing out the process. We would have our conversations prior to going out, and we really came to that conclusion of if to show a strength of leadership and direction, we needed to have one voice. So I was fortunate that they were on board with that. They fought, as well as residents' concerns. They fought the fact of allocating this money for overtime. That's not what they were looking for. And when the people spoke, that's exactly, they were echoing.
So where did the money go instead?
Programming for youth, environmental changes. We're doing a lot of things at our learning corridor where Doreen Abubakar is working.
Now, the learning corridor is what used to be called the mud hole, right?
Exactly.
Where Shelton Avenue and Hazel, right, and some streets there kind of all come together.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been some housing built there. What used to became famous in the 90s as the place where drugs were sold and people got shot. It's a much safer place now. And now right out on the street, activities take place like a Sunday food giveaway, clothes giveaway, teaching kids about bicycles and riding bikes and getting their helmets. So what has been done through your initiative at the Learning Corridor?
I've had a hand in everything that you just said. Everything health and wellness, the environmental changes that have taken place and that are coming. We're looking to add more lighting. Of course, we're doing call boxes. We're engaging with Yale Health, who they do a weekly walk.
Now, weren't they going to evolve from a weekly walk to a weekly bike ride?
Yes,
Sunday mornings.
Yes, we're looking
Or
to
Saturday.
get bike clubs in Newhallville. So we have several organizations that are involved in that component of the program, such as the health and wellness. But we're also aware that we want to remove some of the stigmatisms of places that the mud hole, which was.
But
called.
the mud hole, really, people don't call it that anymore.
No,
I mean, only
it's
us
moved.
old heads who,
Yeah,
it really is the Learning Corridor.
yeah. Well, you got a lot of people in that area still refer to it
Oh,
as
yeah?
the mud hole.
Are they under 50?
Well, I'm not going to throw that out. But
It's okay. I'm not insulted. I'm well over 50, Arthur.
yeah, so they still have that knowledge, and and it's great that you say that because again, one of our initiatives is to get that older crowd involved, so that they can see that changing that place into a place of health and wellness and community cohesion is what community is about. So as we reach out to them, we want them to take part and suggest what programs do you want to see out there.
And you mentioned environmental activities. What kind of environmental work have you done?
Well, we've of course cutting back the trees, improving the lighting, We're doing things to get people out.
How do we know? Because I remember the lighting started with Pastor Donald Morris, and the ministers actually demanded that UI fix those lights, and the city fix the lights and make them brighter. What happens long term? You talked about seeding long term change to make Newhallville safer. What gets done to make sure that the trees won't just grow back and make it dark again?
Well, that's where it comes into our elected officials, of course, keeping our community voice, people involved, to make sure we're continuing to build that positive relationship with downtown. As you know, historically, a lot of things in Newhallville were fractured. Police relationships, the relationship with the elected officials downtown. So as
the
we
Rebel
continue,
Ward started with Josh Moore and Chuck Allen, and all through the years, you'd have all these challenges.
Yeah. So again, overcoming those challenges, but not only recognizing them for this 2 or 3 year period, but realizing that we want to sustain these positive relationships with our grassroots organizations, our nonprofits out there that are trying to make a difference. So again, in order for us to sustain those type of things, we collaborate a lot. We've increased collaboration in Newhallville twofold, and we're willing to have those conversations. It's not always an agreement, but to come to a happy medium where we understand that we want to continue to move forward in Newhallville.
All right. Tell me about the old Ivy Street, a.k.a. Ivory Street School. What was it like? It was an elementary school, right?
Oh, man, it was a bunch of fun. Back at that time, they had the basketball courts next door. You had Eddie's Barbershop.
Which lasted until Eddie died. Didn't Eddie just die on Newhall Street about a few months ago? But he was there for 50 years.
Yeah, he's an icon. He was an icon. The family's still there. And, he's one of those guys. He was involved. He was a Oriental Lodge Mason. So he was involved. His conversation and just the act of him every day getting up, opening up that barbershop, and engaging with the community. A lot of us can recall conversations we've had with him.
Tell me about a conversation you had with Eddie when you were growing up.
You got to be out there. You got to, you're too smart. You got to be out there in the community doing something good for the people. That was one of the things I always remembered about him. He wasn't, like my mother, over the top with things to me, but he had a way of getting his word out there and really inspiring people to do better, not only for themselves, but for the community.
And did you leave New Haven at any point? You just been Newhallville nonstop?
No, I went down to Baltimore, Maryland for 4 years.
What'd you do there?
I was a program project manager, actually, for the Department of Juvenile Services. Created programs to reduce violence in Baltimore facilities.
Baltimore's tough.
Yeah, it was a tough.
Even if I hadn't watched The Wire, I would know that.
Well, the Wire had nothing on that real experience, but again, I took it as a great learning opportunity. I learned a lot. I definitely collaborated a lot with it's the same concept here: elected officials, Boys and Girls Club. Making
Why'd you come back?
Satellite programs. I have kids here. So
Oh yeah.
That every 2 weeks up and down that highway got to me a little bit. So.
Well, Arthur, we're talking about all the great stuff happening in Newhallville, East Rock, and citywide thanks to the One City Summer we're about to embark on. That they're going to change New Haven, and there's no turning back. You're listening to that on Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM 103.5, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Kim Harris is the head of the management team. Before we go to East Rock, Kevin, there have been some issues in Newhallville lately. I wanted to ask you about Kim. The city has an agency that deals with neighborhoods and blight called Livable City Initiative, LCI. And that's besides the cops, that's one agency you hear about a lot at the neighborhood level with the management teams. And you always want them to take care of the quality of life nuisances that can add up, that could either block progress or fix them and open the way to progress. So lately, LCI has been busy in Newhallville.
Yes, it has.
They went to something like, 5 or 6 properties and said, your backyard is a junkyard. You got all these cars that don't move. You got all this stuff piled up. And some people, they cited them, said, you got to clear this place out. You can't have a backyard like that. And some of the people who have those backyards said, but it's fine. I'm just putting cars up here. What's the problem with that? We got them registered. What was your feeling? Are you glad they came through and decided to declare a bunch of backyards junkyards?
Well, first of all, I want to say that change is really, really hard. And if you've been doing something for a couple of decades and then all of a sudden this comes about, it's challenging. So what I'm seeing is when you see a new influx of new people come in, they're buying the homes. And they don't want to see this in their neighborhood where it's a garage. It's a full garage. So what do? Do you help the people who are just moving into the neighborhood or who may have been in the neighborhood for a long time but have not said anything because they're afraid to say anything because it was business as usual? So I'm kind of happy for the cleanup because some of those cars have been there forever and ever.
And what's the problem when cars are there forever, ever? Is it just give a feeling that there's not order in the neighborhood so other people won't keep their property as clean?
Environmental things as well. And just imagine rusted cars, old cars, kids going to play over there, and it's not a safe passageway for a playground that may be happening.
Does it attract other trash as well?
Absolutely, it does. And I've actually seen some of the cars being moved out since LCI has given the.
All right, so you've seen progress.
Absolutely, because nobody wants to get fined $100 a day.
And Tonino Mavuli says, beautiful on Facebook Live. Thanks you for listening, Tonino, in Inner City, Connecticut. Hello, brother-in-law Art. Babs rolls on. So LCI also has done been going after lead paint and the health department. Yeah. And that's in all neighborhoods. And that's a big problem because a lot of older houses, they just have lead paint in them, and then kids can get poisoned. Have you seen any impact on that in your neighborhood?
Yes, I have. And I'm very grateful because, I'm a child advocate. Mm-hmm. So that's me 100%. I've seen some stories. I've talked to some parents where because of the lead impact in the homes, their children have been impacted through health challenges. So I'm happy to see that they're on top of that. It's just tough. It's so tough because most of the lead paint houses that I'm hearing about, it's affordable housing.
Right.
So if you have a choice between living on the street or going to some place that has a little bit of lead and hopefully you can keep an eye on your child, but you can't keep an eye on your child.
Sometimes they just breathe it in.
Yes. Yeah, so it really has an impact.
So Kevin, you have a history of knowing about this kind of stuff, Kevin McCarthy, and you comment sometimes in the Independent with really smart input on this. There's a challenge. People own the houses. You buy an old house. I think is it 70% of the houses in town have lead paint,
and also the inner suburbs. It's not just a New Haven problem. That anything that was built before the 70s has lead.
And then if you can get closer, Kevin, to the mic. And some people own the properties think it's not fair that New Haven has a higher standard that you have to meet because new research shows that even less lead than we thought can give kids brain damage. Landlords think that it's not realistic. You're going to make everyone do a gut rehab. Tony Hart, the mayor, says we do have a higher standard because we have a higher standard for the safety of our children.
And actually, I think it's that the state standard has been going down. When I first became involved with the issue years ago, it was 25, and now it's down to, I believe, 5.
5 what? Parts per what?
Million, I believe. I mean, it's a very tight standard. And so you'll have homeowners who thought their buildings were lead safe and bought them with that understanding and are finding out that under the current standards they're not. And one of the problems is that, from the epidemiology, there really is no safe level for lead. And one of the things I commented on, is that anyone who has spent any time with little kids know they get their hands dirty and they put their hands in their mouths. And this is true regardless of the kid's background. That's what little kids do. And, I assume that most parents are very conscientious and try to take care of, their kids, but little kids do that kind of thing.
All right. And we also have been joined in the studio by Doreen Abubakar. Did I say your name right, Doreen?
Yes, Abubakar.
Okay. And Doreen, I'm going to ask you to get close to the mic. And thank you for coming in. And before, again, Kevin, we talk about East Rock. We're talking today about Newhallville and East Rock, two very different neighborhoods that do run into each other and have the same community policing district, but two separate management teams. Doreen, you've had such an interesting time in New Haven. Even though we don't know each other, I followed you. And can you not hear the headphones? Oh.
Actually.
Okay. So anyway, Doreen, you recently were honored with the Wessel Prize, which is an annual prize that honors activists who have made the biggest difference in New Haven. How's that? You can hear? Okay. And you've done so much over the years. You were an original person in Rainbow Recycling, if I'm not mistaken. Before New Haven took on recycling, a bunch of advocates, Jake Weinstein, others, and you, went out in neighborhoods and just started picking up. I remember we were one of the first households that signed up to have you come pick up our recycling and resell it so that we can make a cleaner city, cleaner air,
Mhm.
and then that's become city policy. And you've stayed involved in real environmental work and bicycling over the years. Now, these days you're active in Newhallville and West River, am I correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you to get real close to the mic.
Okay.
So now, Doreen, you've just joined the Solid Waste Commission of the city,
Yes.
so you're going to help do policy for that.
Mhm.
You also have a group called Community Placemaking and Engagement Network, CPEN.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I started it because about 5 years ago, under a parent initiative, I had the opportunity to represent Graustein Memorial Fund
Mm-hmm.
in sort of a special project for parents, leaders to
So
go.
wait, are
and-
you one of those Graustein fellows that went in that program, Emerging Leaders?
Not that particular one. This one was a small side pilot
Mhm.
where they selected 5 parents from 5 different cities in the state of Connecticut to be a part of this cohort group. And so now I've been in that for about 8 years. But anyway, about 5 years, we were given $75,000 from Graustein
Right.
to work on bringing parent engagement, conversation, and activities in our own cities. And so I wanted to pick an area where I could see the impact. So I chose Newhallville. And then when I went there, I saw that there wasn't like a lot of places where I can meet with parents for such a big community. And so walking past a green space, I said, oh my goodness, I can adopt a green space and sort of work with parent engagement.
Which
Right.
green space was that?
It was used to be known as the Mud Hole.
Yeah, we're just talking about that before we get in. Okay, the
And,
learning corridor now.
So now it's the learning corridor now.
For people under 50.
For people under 50. Oh,
We were joking about how for those of us over 50 know the name the Mud Hole, even though
yes.
it's really not the Mud Hole anymore.
exactly.
It's not muddy and they're not dealing drugs and shooting each
Right.
other. And there's housing there and you got all these programs you're doing on the weekends right out in
Exactly.
public there at Shelton Avenue and Hazel. But we're saying how you've really branded it as something new.
Yeah. So it was really divinely inspired to see the space and actually to see so much more that space could become.
So some of what you're doing there, you have bicycling programs there?
We have bicycling program. We do community beautification. We planted a block-long pollinator garden.
Oh, I'm sorry, pollinated?
Pollinator
Oh,
garden.
meaning for bees to come?
That's right. Butterfly, bees, and birds.
So we still have bees. Because I understand that could be a dicey proposition going from it.
Yes. But the nice thing about this particular block-long pollinator garden is that the garden was planted during the year that Mayor Harp signed on to the National Bird Migration Treaty. And so Newhallville is on the national site as an urban oasis site.
Oh, there's so many community gardens there to start with.
Well,
That's Community Garden Central. It's Newhallville.
right, but the urban oasis is a whole different
Oh, yeah. How's
type
that
of garden.
different?
How? Because it's specifically planting native plants
Mhm.
that will attract our native birds, butterflies, and bees.
What kind of native plants have you been planting?
Now, yes, the actual names of them are hard for me to.
No, I don't
pronounce.
mean, what do we call them?
Oh, we call them native plants.
But I mean, like, are they called like,
Northeastern
okay.
plants. So there's a list that the Audubon Society puts out, and you can only plant those plants
Mhm.
for it to be a certified pollinator natural habitat.
And Darian Bubakar, how long did you live in Newhallville?
I don't live in Newhallville.
No, did you? How long?
I never lived
you
in
never-
Newhallville.
Because you live in West River now.
I live in West River, and I grew up in the Hill,
Okay.
and I adopted Newhallville, and it's
And why was that?
for the reasons that I said.
Oh, with the Graustein Project. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to go into an area where I'm used to volunteering, I'm used to starting things, and I just wanted to be in an area where I could really make an impact. And I felt that that neighborhood is, to me, just even living in the other neighborhoods, I always felt that it was overlooked
Mhm.
and lacking a lot. And that even though we have citywide organizations, those citywide organizations are not going into that neighborhood. And I've realized on my own some of the barriers is not having a place where you could set up and say, come here and we can do this.
Mhm.
So,
And you also, are you active in West River?
yes.
There's environmental work that goes on there. Was it called the Peace Garden near Barnard where you did that? Or Little Red?
No,
something
I am actually the founder and recognized by both the state and the city for being the founder of the West River Water Festival.
Okay, tell me about that.
That started 8 years ago, and I wanted to do watershed education. I wanted to find a way to connect people that live around the West River to the river.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first started, they used to have phragmites so high that you couldn't even see the river. And what I thought was really interesting was that a lot of the people that lived around it, like literally across the street, didn't even know there was a flowing river there. So the mission of the Water Festival was to, one, educate them about watershed education as well as stewardship, and then also give them an opportunity to experience what people do if they have money to experience a canoe ride. So we would
I've been on that once when Peter used to do those canoe rides, yeah.
We hire Quinnipiac.
It's so interesting to see that neighborhood differently from the river, the West River, when you go out there, just seeing it from the water. And
Right.
You see
Yes. And so we have about 125 scholarships. People come out and they're able to ride on the river for free. We always provide food, and it's just really sort of like a picnic-y kind of field, exploring kind of experience.
You make a lot of things happen during the move, huh? And you have a lot of initiatives, like to start stuff. You were the Rock to Rock Newhallville team captain, right, for the bicycle riders. I got checking you out before you got here.
Last year I rode in the Rock to Rock, me and two other people, and I wanted to try it first before I started encouraging others. And, I made it.
All right.
And then this time I wanted to invite kids to come out with us on the bikes that we have in Newhallville. And still it was challenging because I don't really ride that much. But I just brought a bike, and I brought it to work today. So, I'm going to be riding a little bit more. I'm all decked out with my basket and everything.
Spandex?
No, not as far as clothing yet.
That's good. I feel better because I will never be spandex, and I'm going to be in solidarity with you, the non-spandex bike rider. Okay. I also know it's 2014. You were part of that first class of women entrepreneurs in the Passion to Profit Women's Business Council City Small Business Center training program. Did you get a business out of that? What was your?
Well, yeah. So I am an entrepreneur trainer. I'm a certified by the National Foundation for
Another way of saying a starting something starter.
Well, yes, and I've decided to be a consultant where I help other people start things.
All right, and we got some people writing in. Julian Guest says, waiting to hear from Art. We did talk to Art at the beginning. We will get back to Art. Inner City says, it's stunning to me that we still have lead issues in housing. My brother suffered from lead poisoning when he was a child. Our house was condemned, torn down on 211 Newhall Street, across the street from Mr. Eddie's barbershop. Why is this an issue in black communities? Do we know of lead issues in East Rock, Westville, properties in those neighborhoods? It just is all a really good point. It's actually the Amity neighborhood where the most high-profile case has been taking place that we've been writing about in the Independent involving. What do you think, Kevin McCarthy? You're in East Rock. Do you see much lead paint issue happening there?
I haven't had direct experience with it, but I assume that since most of East Rock was built long before lead paint was phased out, that most of East Rock has lead paint, and 70% of East Rock is renters, the same as the city average. So I think it's the same sort of problem.
It happens when someone alerts the health department, right, that a kid might be poisoned.
Well, what will often happen is a pediatrician will find out that a kid's got an elevated blood level, and that starts the process.
So it's kind of interesting that we're hearing more about it from Black and Latino communities when often they're the least served about when there's a problem on the radar. I wonder, any thoughts on that, Art, there? I mean, have you been seeing that all at the work you do in strengthening Newhallville?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it speaks a lot to us being educated about what is impacting our environment and our community. It goes back to the concept of I go Republican with the this is your brain on drugs. We know
is your brain on lead? Yeah,
lead. We know the impact that it has on our children and how that impacts their future. So I think it's great that people are aware of it and they know what avenues to go to try and resolve these issues. And I'm definitely proud to see the city has a standard that shows that we're not just being neglected or even disrespected. They understand that it's serious in the Newhallville community, and they want to see change.
We're not neglected or disrespected. Rodney Williams writes in, thank you for listening, Rodney. He's also in Newhallville. When can we have a forum, Paul, on the impact of New Haven gun rage on the Newhallville community? Your show, that would be great. topic for you to address. Thank you, Rodney. Let's address it right now. So Newhallville has been living with the police firing range training center at Sherman Parkway. And, you know, people live there feel like you don't know if the gunshots are going off, someone getting shot, or the police practicing in all hours of night. It's finally about to move. I think we're like a month or two away. There's going to be a new facility in West Rock, but they're going to have noise proofing, allegedly, so they're not just going to wake up all of Brookside. What has been the impact? Because, again, we're talking about safety and community policing and redefining that, Arthur. What has been the impact of that gun range, and what are you thinking about the move?
Normalcy. I think it speaks to kids, not only kids, us over 50, of the normalcy of having peace, of not having gunshots going off, regardless if they're from the police or criminals. A child growing up not having to deal with the trauma of the trigger of hearing that noise. And
becomes normal almost, but not.
Yeah, so I think it speaks loudly to the efforts to really respect, again, Newhallville residents, have an understanding of the traumas that they have faced, you know, and really do something about it. We don't want to hear bullets and guns going on.
Do you remember hearing it growing up?
Yeah, and be
I mean,
honest with
you weren't
normal.
that close. Your house is up the hill a little bit from that.
You still heard it. You heard the gunshot. They echo right over. They probably heard them over at East Rock. You know, so that was our reality. And unfortunately, it was accepted. You know, we had a lot of gunplay in Newhallville during those years. But again, glad to see the change coming. Glad to see that.
So fewer gunshots from shootings and fewer gunshots from the practice. So Kim Harris, you know, the management team, we talk about how management teams are the grassroots democracy engines where people hear about what matters most to the community. How important over the years has it been to your neighbors to move that gun range? How big a priority was that to their quality of life that you could notice from the meetings?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge because when you can be in your home and you sit there and for a gun to go off and it doesn't jar you at all, we have become a desensitized society of just accepting it big time, as Arthur was saying. So we are elated to see that they were listening. Our voices were heard. We met with the chief and we talked about it and how could we make this happen. It was a process. It was absolutely a process, but they listened. And you know what? I think because of things like that, we get a chance to work on the relationship factor and also the trust factor.
And it doesn't happen unless people speak up
Absolutely.
and organize, not only to get rid of problems like a gun range, but to build something positive like the One City campaign we're starting on June 28th.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about that on Dateline New Haven, your home for community radio, WNHH FM at 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhaven.org. We got a great group of kind of people here in the studio today who just make New Haven a great place, even if they don't shout their names from the rooftops. We got Doreen Abubakar from Newhallville, Arthur Edwards from Newhallville, Kim Harris from Newhallville, and we also have Kevin McCarthy from East Rock. Rodney Williams writes in, wow, thanks for the call, guests. It's a big deal now. They're shooting assault rifles. They're not listening. All right, Rodney, thanks for checking in. Let's go up the hill and back down the other side to East Rock. So, Kevin McCarthy, you've been active. You know, you've been living there for decades.
Mm-hmm.
You were sort of one of those people you never hear about in the news from state legislature, but doing all the research and how things really work. You often comment in The Independent about how zoning really works. You teach us all about the stuff we're writing and reading about. What's going on in East Rock these days? What's the big issues?
I don't know if there are any huge issues right now. There are a couple of developments going on that are positive. One thing I'm looking forward to is we're getting a brewery on Nichols Street that's supposed to open at the end of the summer.
Is it going to be a brew pub? Or
it's a brewery.
So you're not going to sit there and drink. You're going to just buy
They're
the
going
beer.
to have a tasting room, and I think they may be doing food. This is on Nichols Street.
Oh, food. So you will be able to go hang out there.
Yeah. By McTivity for folks who know where that fitness center is. And on the other end of the neighborhood, what used to be Jet Cleaners is being turned into a brew pub. This is owned, I believe, by the folks.
So I'm getting a beer theme because Archie Moore's is the great kind of old watering hole that's still hanging on.
Yeah, there are 2 or 3 places to get beer.
And you know, you had somewhat of an industrial past on the Goatville side of East Rock. So East Rock really has the sort of Yale ghetto, they call it, ironically, on the west side of Orange Street. On the other side, the houses are closer together. Used to be sort of working class and called Goatville because people kept goats. And that's the part that goes from like Orange Street to State Street. What used to be factories are being transformed. You talk about the McTivity Gym. You talk about these breweries. You're also going to be turned to housing. So Lehman Brothers, right? That used to be a factory. That's now going to be apartments.
Which was a really blighting building, something that happens across the city, and that is being converted right now.
And housing's gotten expensive since you've lived in East Rock.
Yeah.
They get those Yale kids, you get 9 of them into an apartment and charge them all as though they have their own apartment.
Well, the one thing that's happening, which I think on balance is a very good thing, is that historically Yale grad students and staff would live in East Rock, and that was the only neighborhood they would consider, with the possible exception of Westville. And partially because of the rising rates, partially because of the decreasing crime, you'll have Yale grad students exploring new areas. You have a substantial number moving to Mansfield Street. You have a fair number moving to Dwight. My friend 3/5 will raise the issue of gentrification, which is real.
In Goatville especially.
Yeah.
Because Goatville, it's and also some people like older folks who are kind of working class and owned houses and rent out the apartments. If they're still renting them out, they can still afford to live there, but other people can't afford the taxes because values have gone up so much faster in East Rock than the rest of the city that even though the city had no overall tax increase in the last reassessment last year, taxes went through the roof in East Rock because they went down some other places, and it's kind of hard to hang on.
Years ago, I was at a management team meeting, and then Mayor DeStefano opened up the conversation by saying, I've got good news for you and bad news for you. The good news, and this was again quite a while ago, is that property values in East Rock were doing relatively well. That this was during the recession, and property values had not gone down that dramatically. The bad news was that property values almost everywhere else had tanked, and therefore our taxes were going up. And that was the reality.
So then I'm wondering about the impacts of, so then you have this new place, the Corsair. That was a big factory that was empty on State Street at the edge of Goatville.
Mm-hmm.
That got turned into a New York-style market rate apartment complex where you have little apartments that cost a ton in this beautifully renovated space, but it's promising community. So young singles or couples don't have a lot of room in their apartments, but these big open spaces they share. They make big oven pizzas together. They have a pool, meeting areas. So one idea was that that's going to hurt the neighborhood because the rents go up. The other idea was going to help the neighborhood because existing rents might go down because there's more supply than there used to be. And other theories was that's a wash. It's going to bring a whole bunch of new people.
The one thing which I've noticed is historically you would see for rent signs in the summer, maybe into September, and then everything would be rented up. And now you are seeing for rent signs, pretty much throughout the year. And so the filtering that's happening because of Corsair and 360 State is affecting East Rock. I don't know that it's affecting other neighborhoods really at this point.
But how's it affecting East Rock?
It's certainly increasing the rental vacancy rate and probably putting downward pressure on rents.
So that's not necessarily bad, except for the people who want to collect the rent at their house.
Right. And, obviously I have friends who have multifamily houses, and particularly given the increase in the property tax, that makes it more difficult.
So they have to pay more tax but get less rent.
Yeah. The other thing, though, that Corsair did, I think, was revitalize that part of the neighborhood. I don't know that McTivity would have come in absent Corsair.
And next to the skating rink, which the city was fixing back up, and now it's going to get even more fixed up because Albertus Magnus is starting a hockey team.
Yeah.
And helping to fix up the rink and having youth hockey. And one thing Albertus has done, right near where you live, Arthur, in Newhallville, Albertus Magnus, really sort of its own little island for a lot of years. And under its new president, Mark Camille, it's trying hard to be part of the neighborhood. It's also trying to figure out how it's going to survive. It's doing a lot of new energy. I've noticed a lot more presence, including of your sister when they were she's the alder in Newhallville, the hockey announcement. They just had their graduation where they highlighted their ties to Newhallville. What are you seeing about the relationship between Albertus and Newhallville? Either you and Kim's spoken about this before.
Yes, we me and my lovely sister reached out to Albertus, of course. They've been very receptive. We're talking about doing, call boxes, lighting, the same things we're talking about with the Burn Grant around the campus. Not only around the campus, but engaging them in Newhallville activities.
And Kim went to Albertus, right?
Yes, she's a graduate of Albertus, so she's always pushing that Albertus thing. So it's great to see working with Ms. Kovac over at Albertus. We've done a few events together. She's invited us, the neighborhood residents, over to the campus. Things that have been done in the past. So it's great to see that that they are a true resource.
And I
for
love
New
that the
Hope.
announcement of the hockey rink, one of the officials said, if you really want to know what's going on in New Haven, you go to the management team. And Kim, they come to your management team, don't you? Don't Alberta's people show up? And what's their role there?
So they come and they listen and they hear. As a matter of fact, I just got a note yesterday, an email that the president wants to meet with us, the executive team, because we're going to talk about his commitment to Newhallville and what it is that he's going to, do. And he doesn't have to, but I appreciate the fact that he's going to. And I'm going to bring you an update as to what he said and what it is. What's his plan? What's his plan? Because I love how Eric Clemens, he was the commencement speaker at the graduation.
The head of Concat.
Yes, and he put it out there. He really kind of set the foundation, and he said to all that were sitting there, are we going to be bridges or are we going to be barriers? And I know that resonated a lot with Albertus, because for a long time it's been, I don't want to say tough, but it was a different regime that was in there, and he's been very open and welcoming.
Excellent. Now, Doreen and Arthur, you talked about work on the environment in Newhallville. Recently, I guess it was a week ago now, a little more, we had a big storm that was a tornado in Hamden. This is a replay of 1989. They got hit by a tornado that was just devastate entire blocks and just take out all these trees, and some people were stuck for overnight, couldn't get home. We weren't hit that bad in New Haven. We didn't have a tornado, but we had a big storm, and East Rock and Newhallville and Westville were the ones that took it on the chin. That's where people lost power. That's where trees came down. Was this an opportunity to get rid of trees that were also blocking the lights, or was this causing problems we got to fix up? Doreen or Arthur, any observations from that storm?
Again, both. It's an opportunity. Some of the trees that weren't healthy, they were destroyed. Nature itself taking place. So it's an opportunity for the city to respond to residents' concerns that came out during the management team meetings. I think they did a great job coming out to what are your needs, clearing spaces, making sure we get things out of the roadway. And we still have to improve in certain areas, but the response was there, and the conversation was there of what needed to take place right after the storm. So.
And Kevin, any thought on East Rock, how that went?
There was obviously a fair amount of power outage. I didn't experience it myself. I've lived in Soho for 30 years and have been out of power for 1 hour during that time.
How about the trees?
The trees, it wasn't terrible, but there certainly have been times when we've had major tree damage. There were certainly a fair number of trees have been taken down over the last couple of storms in East Rock Park, and I think it's going to be a while before that gets resolved.
All right, I'm reminding you to listen to Dateline New Haven, WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio. We got a great group of people make things happen in Newhallville and East Rock. Arthur Edwards, Kevin McCarthy, Doreen Abubakar, and Kim Harris. And before we let you go, we have to talk about one city. So Newhallville has led the way for New Haven. Coming out of your management team, you've brought together the management chairs of every neighborhood. And everyone signed on to working together this summer to create an event every day for 60 days. What a high bar of that families can enjoy, from music to education to seeing places you never saw before, and also getting a list of small businesses and institutions, up to 5 per neighborhood, that people are going to visit and get discounts at, so they can learn what small businesses in their town and help them be stronger. What's the latest update, Kim? I know June 28th is the opening event. How are we getting ready?
Yes, we are getting ready. I want to say that Union Station is on board now.
With what?
So that we can do tours. Union Station, the kids.
So we're going to go. So let's say you're home with your kids or just without kids. You say, what I'm going to do today, every day in the summer. One thing that's going to pop up when you go to the One City Initiative website is going to say, visit Union Station. And Union Station is a cool place.
Yes, it is.
And what's going to happen on these tours?
So you'll get a chance to see the trains, meet conductors, and kids will get a coloring book and a hat. So it's a real big deal. And they get a chance to touch a bus. Because the bus station is connected as well. So they'll get a chance to do the tour facility over there. Big, huge deal for us. We just solidified this, 2/3 of the parts that we want to get with this. On Middletown Avenue, there's Public Works, there's AMR, and there's the transfer station. So Public Works has committed to allowing a day in July and a day in August where people can come out and do a tour. And after you leave that tour, you can go
And
over
kids are going to like that to
Oh,
see
my
the stuff
goodness.
that gets the snow and the big machines that wash the streets and all that.
all
yeah.
the new trucks that are happening. It's beautiful. And then you can go next door to AMR.
That's
and-
the ambulance company.
Yes, and you can see all the new toys that they have over there. And so we're waiting for
That's a fun thing for kids to do in the summer
absolutely.
with their and the parents get interested too.
and then go down the street to the transfer station.
And you know what's good about that too is then in the future, I'm sorry to interrupt
No
you,
problem.
if you actually know about calling Public Works if you want to get a new recycling toter or if the sidewalk's broken or something.
That's right, because recycling is big. It's been one of the things in New Haven that we really need to work on. The mayor is making a call for this, and we.
That's
really
right. Is participation down?
Yes, and we really participation is down. Our recycling garbage is it's not tolerable. I know you want to speak to this.
Yeah,
Doreen.
nobody knows more about this than Doreen, who was at the
Absolutely.
beginning with the citizen group Rainbow Recycling back in
Absolutely.
the 80s. Watch the city take out. And Doreen, I've been
Yes.
hearing about this nationally, that there have been changes where people, because we went to single stream recycling, we could throw all sorts of recycling stuff together and machines weed them out. People started throwing stuff that shouldn't be in recycling, and it's been harder to sell that garbage that gets recycled, so harder for cities to make their money back. And then China, that used to buy a lot of our recycled garbage, doesn't want any more because their economy's gotten more developed, but that other third world countries might be stepping to the beach. So how's that affecting us on the ground?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that according to the solid waste, Newhallville came in as number 1.
Meaning the best recycling participation?
The best
That's cool.
recycling participation.
See, now I'm a snob. I live in Westville. I thought we were the best because I see
No.
everyone putting our toters.
They said
Yeah.
Newhallville. And yes, the reason why I wanted to join the city's board is because I feel that we lack a lot of education. When they changed from the regular way that we were recycling with glass jars and so on, and then to the one stream, the problem is that there's like 11 different rules that goes along with that. You could no longer put a whole thing into the recycling. You had to detach tops
Oh,
from
yeah?
the bottoms. And
I didn't know that.
yeah, there's like all kind
You're
of,
supposed to take the top off your bottle before you put it in?
right. And with those sort of changes, it makes it not fit the category for,
Mm.
to recycle. So I'm really pushing, one of the board members, for us putting together a real sort of education campaign in some way, which is really explaining the process of the one stream recycling.
Excellent. And Kim, did you want to mention anything else about one?
Absolutely. So we also Tweed is on board. So you can we're setting up the day one day.
So
in
you're
July.
sending families all over the city this summer to
That's
check
right.
out the transportation network.
Absolutely.
The trucks at Public Works, the trains at Union
Yes.
Station, and the planes at Tweed.
The transfer station of how we recycle. Yes. The museums. We're working on the museums right now so that you can have free tours going into the museum. Most of the museums here in New Haven are for free, and we're going to designate a couple days where people can just actually go.
That's excellent.
Yes. And
Just think of this summer in New Haven. All these families are going to be going from the British Arts Center to Public Works to the train station, the Learning Corridor, a lot of stuff going
Children's
on.
Museum. Yes, it's just all over the place. And then that's right. So the other thing that I want to mention is that Newhallville is the first to complete its 60-day calendar.
You got 60 events going.
60 plus.
Whoa.
60 plus. And Dixwell is a close second, with Westville and downtown New Haven being a close third.
Because, we always knew that even if some neighbors don't quite get to 60, it's going to be pretty amazing if you have 12 neighborhoods doing 60 events. So if some are 55, we're going to say, okay, you made it.
Yes.
You made 60 in Newhallville.
We are 60
Way to
plus,
go.
and we are touting it.
Wow.
We are looking to do a taste of Newhallville, which will be Newhallville Day, Friday, July 13th.
Mhm.
We're pushing for that, where from 10 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening, you can go all around Newhallville, and you're going to be able to do something. You're going to
Mhm.
see different things. The other thing that I really want to say, we have a little special guest in the audience here.
Mhm.
Her name is Kimberly Holmes James, and she is a vegan, Paul. And
My
she's-
fellow
yes,
vegan.
absolutely.
How long
She-
you been a vegan, Kim?
Lifetime.
Yeah.
Lifetime. And she's
That's
a vegan.
part of the Seventh-day Adventist philosophy.
Absolutely.
Okay, because she put her on the. So Kimberly's with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Mount Zion, in on Marlborough Street, which we call that all Newhallville. We
Yes,
don't look at town
absolutely.
lines. It's
Absolutely. But what I want to mention
like
about
lean to the right, you're in New Haven. Lean
Yes,
to the left,
right,
you're
you're
in
West Haven.
Hamden. Yeah.
She and her sisters, they have a television show, and it's singing
Oh,
and
yeah?
cooking. So I really want to bring her to the
Really?
table, and it's an interesting spin. And I'll leave it to Kim.
So we
to
got just
talk
a
little
couple
bit.
minutes left. So Kim, tell us what's happening this Saturday, May 26th at 5 p.m. at the Seventh-day Adventist Church on Marlborough Street.
So,
And please get real close to the mic.
hello everybody. My name is
Yes.
Kimberly, and we are having something great at the Mount Zion SDA Church. We believe in health and wellness, and this is a series that we're promoting by the Dr. Martin Opoku, and he's coming to tell us about what is the greatest killer of life. Do you know what the greatest killer of life? Well, guess what? Come on down and find out on Saturday at 5
And
p.m.
he's talking about how you eat, right?
Yes. He's talking about diet, wellness, and disease prevention, and what to do if you have challenges. So please come out, find out what's going on. And we have many other things that we are doing in the community for the summer in terms of health initiatives. We will be doing cooking classes,
All right.
Vegan classes
cooking classes,
Sign me up.
plant-based, healthy cooking classes.
in Newhallville.
Kim, what do
That's
you,
right.
Kim, what do you do? What do you do about B12?
Well, we take supplements, and we also, supplements, use food and supplements to embrace B12.
Because B12 is the big gap
Yes,
for
it is a
us.
big gap.
But you don't have to get it from meat, but there aren't many sources. I use nutritional yeast. I've been
Right.
resisting. I don't like the other supplements because they cost a lot and it doesn't feel as natural as eating the food. You don't absorb it as well. But my doctor says I got to start them. That I just don't get enough B12 even with the nutritional yeast.
That's right. And one of the natural things that you can do is, as soon as you get up in the morning, you can drink a glass of water, and that's another natural way of getting B12.
How so?
It's the enzymes, the natural enzymes that we have in our body. So that's one of
So
the
we
things that I
produce
do.
the
We
B12.
produce B12 naturally as well. Yeast flakes is another. It's very hard to get the total amount of B12 I have found without using supplements. So I
Yeah.
do use a natural B12 supplement to.
And why we're at the go? But why are you a vegan?
I'm a vegan because I have come to realize, first of all, outside of just Seventh-day Adventist really promoting health and wellness, that's part of our belief. I also have found that in terms of living, I feel better, I look better, we're stronger. Having a plant-based diet also adds 10 years to your life, and it's been proven. So anybody who's interested in adding 10 years to your life, come on down.
See, for me, being a vegan, I don't preach it. Is I feel like I'm more human. I feel like I'm not taking from the world. I'm contributing.
Yes.
And I'm not
and
killing.
That's the other aspect in terms of environmental and preserving our animals. And that's also a great reason to be a vegan as well. And we embrace both concepts. So we are on one accord. Yes, we are.
All right. Well, listen, we got there from lead paint to trees blocking street lights to Goatville housing to One City and to Vegan Saturday. That's Vegan Saturday, this May 26th, 5 p.m., Seventh-day Adventist Church, 64 Marl Street. Hey, thanks for joining us today in One City. Another great week with Kim Harris, who makes it all happen in New Haven. OneCityInitiative.org. That's going to be where we're all living virtually this summer. And it's going to get us out of the house in real life and get to know each other's neighborhoods. Boy, was it great to talk to Doreen Abubakar and all the great work she's done over the years with the environment. Arthur Edwards, a lifer in Newhallville, who's making it happen with the Safe Neighborhoods Initiative. And, of course, the Kevin McCarthy. We couldn't be doing New Haven without him. And he's there in the East Rock Management Team, among many other hats. We're going to take it, and thank you to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. Now, we know what it's like to be free. What do we got to do, Kim, to make it happen?
Hey, listen, don't we have to just book our ticket?
We got to book our flight
That's right.
in One City.
Yes.
And book your flight with us all day long here at WNHH New Haven's home for community radio.